What's up, guys? That's a long video. What's up, guys? My name is Bobby, and I've been invited by XM Studios to talk about one of my favorite pieces they have here in their showroom. By the way, if you haven't checked out their showroom, please do if you ever come to Singapore, because this is an amazing setup they have here. I got the Batman Shugo version B, which I absolutely love, because you can swap out so many different pieces. You can make it unique. It is awesome, the detail they've done in it. And I really like that. But when I saw this Batman White Knight Batcycle piece right here, what they have done with this in collaboration with Sean Murphy is something to behold. There are many great Batman statues out there that XM does. A lot of them. I mean, I have the Batman Shugo. Love it. Absolutely love it. This is, and I may say so, and this is no disrespect to any artist who's done an amazing job, this is on another level. This is a piece that if you're a Batman fan or a Dark Knight fan, you need to have in your home. And they're not asking me to say this. I'm saying this because that's how I feel personally, is that it is that awesome to see. The size, the presence, the art in this, the detail, how you see Batman, that just sort of, how you can just imagine, because I ride a motorcycle, right? How you just hit that rear brake and you skid and you have your leg on the ground, you can just see the cape flying. You get the essence that Batman is coming in there to, he's there to, you know, kick butt and take some names. And that's exactly what this piece shows. And we're gonna go through all of it. I'm gonna show you the details, the sculpt, the different aspects of the Batcycle, how they worked with Sean Murphy here to get every detail, all the colors, down to the fabric, to make it how his interpretation from his comic series to life. This is how XM collaborates with comic artists, and we're gonna talk about that in just a bit. And of course, behind me, you got my friend Jack Napier, AKA the Joker. Also, you've seen him, you know, because in the White Knight comic series, if you haven't read it already, it's sort of a different take on the Batman mythos, because the Joker's the good guy and Batman's the villain. But at the end, they're not that way or not, we'll find out. Well, at least if you haven't read the comics, read them, it's fun. Actually, a very interesting story. They should make a movie out of it. Anyway, I'm digressing. Let's talk about this Batcycle real quick here. Look, here's one of the interesting things that I've realized talking with XM and preparing for this video, because I was actually quite nervous doing this because I actually love this piece. It is so amazing to see in person, is how deep in collaboration they went with Sean Murphy on this. Because if you've seen this White Knight comic series, I love his artwork. It has this angulature, this muscularity to it, and this rawness, this visceralness to his art, which makes it very, it stands out from other artists that would have drawn Batman in the past. And what he's done with Batman, though, in my interpretation, I could be wrong on it, but he sort of made him like a gunslinger from the West, but he's taken that interpretation and brought it into the Batman ethos. Because one thing I love about when you read all the different comics throughout the years is how the artists interpret Batman and how they redesign his costume in different ways, and how they add little elements that make it unique to their series or their run. And what Sean Murphy's done, even with like the leather chaps that go to the bottom of his legs, that it kind of just really to go along with his curvature of his muscularity on his legs, all the way to the collar on his cowl area. Kind of reminds, if you look back to an old gunslinger, old Western cowboy movie, how they have that trench coat with the collar up, and they'd have the hat on, and they have the leather chaps, and they come in with the spurs on it. You're getting that vibe when you look at this Batman. They put him on the Batcycle. It's like his iron horse right here, right? And this is, and then kind of, you put that all together and you could just see how it's almost like he's hitting that rear brake and he's skidding into it, and the cape's flying, and you've got this movement into the statue that XM has done so beautifully. They've taken this 2D element from his White Knight series and they brought it to a 3D element. And you've got this movement that just, I'm telling you, when people see this statue in person, they stop and they stare at it, and you will do exactly the same thing if you are fortunate to get it. There's only 899 pieces of this statue. It's a limited run, and it's large. It's not gonna be for everybody's home or room or office, but if you are able to acquire one of these, you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about when you see this. I'm looking at a person, it's amazing to see this. So what you're getting here is not XM's and just interpretation of what Sean Murphy's drawn, but actually a collaborative piece with Sean Murphy all the way through, from the colors to the design, to how the spikes don't come out of the gauntlet, but they come out of that suit. The 3 spikes that usually are there on Batman's gauntlet, they're now a part of the suit. To the gloves, where you have these metal plates on top of it, like the motorcycle gloves for protection. To even that red handle there, then the colors, but the color of the suit, how the musculature comes, the bat symbol, how it's very angular and very muscular. It's a very different bat symbol. I love the bat symbol Sean Murphy created with it. But you can even see there's a different texture to the bat symbol than what's on the suit. So you can see this three-dimensionality coming into play. But one thing I like what XM's done to this, they've actually added seams to the bat suit to make it much more realistic and much more lifelike. Because when we see a comics, there's no seams, no zippers, there's nothing, right? It's just a suit and that's what it is. So they worked with Sean Murphy. They said, can we add this in? And he said, yes, we can. I love it. It's great. Let's do it. So now you kind of get a sense of Batman. The cape. This cape is a standout feature. Batcycle on its own is awesome to see. But when you get up close and you see the cape, how it flows, and the attention to detail as it flows out, it's amazing. Now, one thing about this is that with that cape coming out, it makes this piece a lot wider. So this is something that you do need to take into consideration depending where you're putting in your home. So if you are trying to put into a narrow space, it may be a little bit difficult. Or you want to put it, let's say you have children at home, you want to be careful of that because this may be a piece somebody could knock on accident, and you don't want to knock this at all. Okay, as I said, it's limited run. It's not something to get you can pick up on extra pieces on this thing. So you have to be very careful of that. But if you have the space, oh man, the dynamic flow of the cape with the position of the Batcycle on top of this rubble right here, this rawness, man, what a piece of absolutely beautiful. Okay, we got to talk about the Batcycle for a second here. Let's talk about this bad boy here. Now, Sean Murphy's an industrial designer, so he took a lot of what his background is. He brought that into the design of the Batcycle, and this is probably, to me, one of the best looking Batcycles we have seen come out of the comics. One thing I love about it is the fairings to the front of this elongated look to the Batcycle. It is utilitarian, it is menacing. It's got so much presence to it, and you look at the details through the exhaust pipes coming up on the side of it, of course, and then you have where the rear set on the pegs, and you get to see how Batman is positioned on it with the handlebars and the brakes and everything coming into play. It's kind of more of a lower handlebars here. It's very aggressive, very sporty, but it's also got this kind of, I would say, it has reminiscence of a Harley V-Rod, but you've kind of put on some different fairings to the front to be made a little bit longer, put a little bit more rake to the fork of it. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting with this Batcycle. Now, one of the cool things that XM did with Sean Murphy on this is, in the comics, you just see the fairings on its own, just this kind of a blocked shaped front end of the Batcycle. But what they did with this is they actually worked with Sean Murphy on the inside to create how it looks inside. So you could actually take the fairings off. This will show you what it looks like in just a bit, or we can actually show you an image to give you an idea of how much detail went into play. And they actually worked with him on all the small details inside the motorcycle to give you that option. So if you want to show it kind of more skeletal, bare bones, you can show that. But if you want the fairings on, you have that as well. Then of course you have the machine guns on the side of it near the front wheel there. You have all those elements there. Then you have various different pieces that you can remove. The grappling gun switch outs, you can remove those there. You can put those in and out. There's magnetic pieces throughout this. Fairings are magnetic, so which is great. I love the fairings, I really do. But I personally, for me, I gotta say, I really love what XM did with the inner workings of it. So if I would have this on display in my home, I would maybe do 1 week out of the month with the fairings on and 3 weeks with them off, because I just love to see the mechanics of a motorcycle. I love to see the nuts and the bolts and the engine, and I love to see the pipes, and I love to see all that kind of come into play, and the brake lining and all that. Oh, it's so awesome, and they've just done a tremendous job with that. As we look at the Batcycle, one thing I found very interesting is you look at the saddle of the seat of the Batcycle. It's actually this brown quilted leather design to it, which is really interesting. It kind of gives it more of a classic vintage vibe to the bike, as modern as it looks. But then when you go to the back of it, you actually have a little bit of a bat symbol on the back of the seat, which actually makes it very interesting. A little nod to it. I'm not sure if Alfred said, hey, wait a second, a little bat symbol there or not, even though unfortunately Alfred doesn't survive long in this comic series. But it is just a little bit of a nice detail that you see in the saddle that makes it very, very unique. Now, speaking of the cape for a second, let's talk about the cape in terms of durability. It's made of polystone here, so it is very durable. And also what's interesting is XM Studios did take this out in the sun, so they tested it out to make sure that this cape would change shape or would droop in any way, shape, or form depending on heat or if sun hits it, because sometimes we don't have the ability to actually keep our rooms completely covered from outside light or from heat. And so XM Studios did put a lot of time and consideration inside of that to make sure this cape withstands heat, sun, to stay at the design they want it to be at. So I've talked about Batman, I talked about the Batcycle, but we got to talk about the base of this thing, because the base in itself is also, it's a beautiful piece of artwork in its own right. Now, as we've seen in the White Knight series, right, Gotham has always been interpreted as this urban, city of rubble and just rawness and visceralness. And you're getting that element, you're getting that into this base here from, you can see these rusted beams, or you can see they're just kind of broken apart in the back area of it here. They got these metal pipes that are coming out of the concrete here. It's like a piece of a bridge that's also kind of fallen apart, and the Batcycle is just landed on top of this thing and skidded on top of it. Then you got this beautiful gargoyle here, which gargoyles are, I mean, you look at gargoyles, you just think Gotham, right? You think Gotham. Then you got this lamp feature here, which actually lights up, and it's beautiful. It adds this nice element of romanticism, but also this eeriness to the piece. So you've got Batman on the Batcycle, very urban, very, you know, mechanical. Then he brings it into a much more Art Deco, very old kind of, brings this essence that Gotham has been around for many, many, many years, since the beginning. You know, New York, 200 years old. Obviously, Gotham is New York City, as they like to say. So it gives you that essence of that. But the rubble, the color, the paint work on this, every brick has its own little different texture and color to it, and the fade, how it fades into each other. This is not like, oh, we're going to skim over the base because everybody's going to concentrate on the Batcycle or Batman. No. XM thought of every single aspect to this to make it a piece of art that encapsulates the whole ethos of what we see in the White Knight series. Let's talk about the face sculpt for a second here, because the face sculpt is very interesting, and this is very reminiscent of what we're seeing from Sean Murphy's drawing of Batman, because he's, as I mentioned earlier, he's got this very angular, very musculature, very visceral way of drawing his characters, and you're seeing that through the sculpt and even the cowl design for it. But the nose itself, it almost has a bit of like a falcon or a bird of prey kind of a look with the angulature coming through it. And while there's very much Batman and a bat throughout his outfit, you can see that, at least in my interpretation, that Sean Murphy added some aspects of this very primal, animalistic design to it. You can even see through the spikes, for the 3 spikes in his arm, in his forearm, and also through the heel area too. It's like spurs, but they almost look like a tooth from let's say a large, like a primal animal that are kind of protruding from his outfit. It's very interesting to see that. Now, talking about the motorcycle for a second, let's kind of look at the V-twin engine there. It kind of reminds me of a Harley-Davidson V-Rod. The one thing I really appreciate is the amount of detail. You see these dual shock system coming from the front of the bike, and it's like, as I mentioned, has this longer rake to the front of it. And you can see that they're actually thinking about how the bike works. If you were to design a bike to look like this and ride like this, how you would implement these parts into it. And you can see that this type of detail, as I mentioned, Sean Murphy's an industrial designer, so these aspects are coming into play here. And working with XM to create these inner workings of the front end of the motorcycle is really fascinating to see. So I could see someone taking this and never know, making a custom Harley-Davidson V-Rod out of this, and they could probably make it work. I think they could make this work, obviously with no guns and no, you know, grappling gun out of it, but you would do some really interesting work out of it, and be very interesting to see that. Well, let's talk about the base of for a moment here. We've got this manhole cover that you can see there. It's got the Gotham City logo on it, and you can see that the texture around it, the little rust and the kind of aging through it, and the uneven texture that you're seeing on the concrete, the blackness and the gray and the rubble that's coming protruding through there. It's really beautiful to see, and it kind of gives you an element that this is really thought through, which makes it a beautiful piece that I think is going to really stand out to a lot of people out there. Talking about the exhaust pipes for a moment here, I want to go back to that. I want to talk about the welding rivets that we see here through the welds, and then you can see the bracket to the top with the screws on top of this area. Then you can see the baffles inside of it, which are also a little more rusted, a bit more burnt, kind of orange color, to be like a bit like it's aged, it's gone through a lot. This is not an eco-friendly bike by any stretch of the imagination. This is raw, this is visceral, this is pure power. And the sound that this bike makes. You look at this exhaust system, you think the sound, you can hear the sound as the bike is skidding into position and Batman's ready to attack or to get off the bike and, you know, do what he needs to do. You can kind of hear and see it and feel it, all because of the design and the colors they've included into this Batcycle. It's fascinating. All right, guys, that's just a little bit about this sculpt right here, which is, I mean, I'm giving you a lot of detail, but there's so much more that you're going to pick up when you see this in person, which makes it absolutely a piece that I would highly recommend. If you have the means to afford it, you have the space to put it into your home, into your office, or into your room, you're going to be blown away by what XM Studios and Sean Murphy have done together with this piece. I mean, XM has done some fantastic reiterations of Batman through the Metal series and through the Samurai, the Shugo series, and now we're seeing it here through the White Knight series. And this is going to be one of the pieces. It's only 899 pieces, I mentioned before, and once they're gone, it's gone. But this is going to be a collector's piece for years to come. Anyway, those are my thoughts on this. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you want any more information on this Batman White Knight Batcycle sculpture, do check out xmstudios.com for more information on that. Their Instagram feed as well. And with that, guys, it's been an honor to be here to talk about this. My name is Bobby once again, and take care, stay safe, and we will chat to you soon.